The story of uranium enrichment starts in the ground. Unlike often believed, uranium is not rare. It is found in rock and soil almost everywhere on Earth, and is more abundant in the Earth's crust than silver or gold. But when uranium ore comes out of the ground, it is not ready to use. Natural uranium is a mixture of three slightly different versions. Around 99.3% is uranium-238. About 0.7% is uranium-235, and a tiny trace is uranium-234. Of these three, only uranium-235 is useful. It is the only one whose atoms split apart easily enough when struck by a neutron to produce a chain reaction and release energy. Uranium-238, which makes up almost all of what comes out of the ground, cannot sustain a chain reaction. So the entire purpose of uranium enrichment is simply to increase the concentration of uranium-235, to take that 0.7% and push it higher. Getting from 0.7% to anything usable requires a way to separate the two versions, and that is done using the slight weight difference between the two, as uranium-235 is very slightly lighter than uranium-238. The original method used during the Manhattan Project in the 1940s exploited this by converting uranium into a gas and pumping it through thousands of barriers riddled with microscopic holes. The lighter uranium-235 molecules passed through the holes fractionally faster, but the difference was so small that the gas had to be pushed through thousands of barriers in sequence to build up any meaningful separation, a process that required enormous facilities and consumed staggering amounts of electricity. The modern method is far more efficient. Uranium is first converted into a gas called uranium hexafluoride. That gas is then fed into a centrifuge, a cylinder that spins at extremely high speed, generating forces around 50,000 to 70,000 times the force of gravity. For comparison, a fighter jet pilot pulling a sharp turn experiences around 9 g-forces. These centrifuges operate at roughly 1 million. At those forces, the heavier 238 molecules are flung to the outer wall of the centrifuge, while the slightly lighter 235 molecules concentrate toward the center. The enriched gas is drawn from the center and fed into the next centrifuge, and the process repeats. There are hundreds or thousands of these centrifuges connected in a cascade, and each one nudges the concentration of 235 a little higher. This centrifuge method was not originally invented for uranium. The first practical centrifuge was built in 1864 by Antonin Prandtl to separate cream from milk, the same basic principle of spinning a mixture so that heavier components move outward and lighter ones concentrate toward the center. The leap to uranium came from an American physicist named Jesse Beams, who in the 1930s began developing an ultra-high-speed centrifuge for separating isotopes. His work laid the theoretical groundwork for using centrifuges in uranium enrichment, which was later refined and industrialized after World War II, most notably through research carried out by captured Nazi engineers whose centrifuge designs formed the basis of the cascades used by multiple countries during the nuclear arms race. The enrichment needed for a nuclear power plant is relatively modest. Uranium-235 concentration needs to reach between 3 and 5%, up from the natural 0.7% found in ore. Reaching that level typically takes weeks of continuous centrifuge operation. Once the gas reaches that concentration, it is converted back into a black powder called uranium dioxide. That powder is compressed into small ceramic pellets, roughly the size of a fingertip, and loaded into long metal tubes called fuel rods, which are bundled together and inserted into the reactor core. A single one of those fingertip-sized pellets contains as much energy as 4 barrels of oil. The reactor then uses the chain reaction from those pellets to generate heat, which boils water, which drives a turbine, which produces electricity. The same basic process as a coal plant, just with a fuel source millions of times more energy-dense. Nuclear weapons require the 235 concentration above 90%, what is called weapons-grade uranium. Once weapons-grade uranium is produced, the gas is converted into solid, metallic uranium and machined into the precise components required for the weapon's core. This process uses exactly the same centrifuge and the same cascades, just running for far longer. Getting from 5% to 90% is exponentially more difficult than getting from 0.7 to 5%. The higher the concentration rises, the harder each additional percentage point becomes, requiring more centrifuges running for more time. A country enriching uranium to 5% for power generation and a country enriching to 90% for weapons are using the same technology and the same facilities. The only difference is how long they keep running. This is why uranium enrichment capacity is so closely monitored internationally. The capability to enrich to 5% and the capability to enrich to 90% are technically the same capability, separated only by time and intent. Click the video on your screen right now and I'll explain another everyday mystery you've wondered about your whole life, but never thought to look up.